The developer of a tower block which caught fire last Friday has been told to stump up more cash for remedial work. Around 40 people needed medical attention after the fire at New Providence Wharf in Poplar, East London. The block has cladding similar to the type used on Grenfell Tower, where 72 people died in a fire almost 4 years ago. The fire prompted Labour to demand an urgent statement from ministers on why some high-rise buildings are still covered in dangerous cladding.
The fire at a tower block in Poplar is another devastating reminder of the dangerous, stressful, worrying and wholly unacceptable situation thousands of people find themselves in today. Leaseholders and tenants, the innocent victims in a scandal that the Prime Minister promised they would not be picking up the bill for. So can the noble Lord Greenhouse tell the House why is it that the Prime Minister's words, the Prime Minister's promises to the victims are so far removed from the reality and actions of the government?
95% of buildings that were identified at the start of last year with the same cladding as on Grenfell Tower have either had the cladding removed or works have started to remove them. And we have made a great deal of progress in the last year with some 159 starts on site. And the Building Safety Fund is open and continues to approve a number of works that will ensure other forms of unsafe cladding are removed.
He said his department had been engaging with Ballymore for more than 2 years.
We also are paying for expert construction advice for this particular site, and that's been available since July 2020. And prior to the fire, and this year I had 2 meetings, so ministerially led meetings with the senior leadership of Ballymore and other members of London Government to try and get the work started. Sadly, they only started this Monday.
It's now nearly 4 years since 72 people died on the altar of private profit. And since then there have been 3 further instances in Barking, in Bolton and this one in Poplar. And it's not just a matter of cladding over 16 metres, it's much more than that. When will the government fully fund all of the measures that are necessary to make these buildings safe before more lives are lost?
Well, my lords, I note the point that's been made, but having said that, it is interesting to note that there are 2 authorities that are now still 4 years after Grenfell discovering the existence potentially of additional buildings with aluminium composite material, and the audit's been conducted by 2 authorities. Sheffield are looking at 9 buildings, and Tower Hamlets are looking at a further 6 buildings. You know, this discovery of ACM-cladded high-rises 4 years after Grenfell is also a matter that is, frankly, beyond the government's control.
Given that the original developer still owns and manages the building, what steps are being taken to ensure that the leaseholders are not being saddled with the historic building safety remediation costs that are no fault of their own?
The government has set up a fund of £5 billion to pay for the removal of dangerous cladding in England.
We want to protect leaseholders, and we are funding £8 million. Our understanding is that the total remediation bill is some £12 million, and we've been pressing Ballymore to stump up the rest of the cash. When I initially met with them, they pledged £500,000. They've increased that this weekend to £1.5 million. Frankly, they shouldn't be passing on any costs to leaseholders.
Could the government explain why the principle of responsibility that would apply to cars and domestic appliances and so on, which may be dangerous and even kill people, where they're required to recall and remediate whatever the equipment is, does not seem to apply to the construction industry?
My Lords, I have to say, on taking over this particular ministerial brief, I was shocked at the weakness of the redress that's available to people who put all their life savings into a building. And that's something that we want to improve through the Building Safety Bill. We need to improve the ability to get redress for people that buy these properties and then discover these defects.
I'm not sure the Minister takes the urgency of the problem to heart. I've talked to people who are absolutely desperate, people who've told me that in their blocks there are people who are virtually suicidal because they can't afford to pay the cost of remediation, and they can't afford to sell because their property is unsaleable. Well, we have a major crisis on our hands. Surely we need much more urgent action than the Minister is saying the government is taking.
The Minister reassured him that the government did understand the need for urgency.